Jordan Hayes adjusted the cuff of his blazer as he stepped onto the private jet. He wasn't dressed extravagantly, just clean, professional, and calm. A simple duffel bag slung over his shoulder held his laptop and a change of clothes. As he entered the cabin, he nodded politely at the flight attendant, a tall woman in her early 30s with a crisp white uniform and a sharp gaze. She gave him a once-over and immediately frowned. "Excuse me," she said, stepping into his path. "This jet is reserved. You must be lost." Jordan paused, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not lost. This is Flight 7A to Zurich, right?" She crossed her arms. "Yes, it is. And we don't allow guests to just wander in. Please step off the aircraft until the proper passengers arrive. I am one of the passengers." She gave a short, forced laugh. "Sir, this is a private charter. Do you even know who owns this plane?" Jordan smiled faintly but didn't answer. Instead, he walked forward to take his seat. That was when she reached out, grabbed his shoulder, and tried to stop him. But her grip was firm, not just blocking him, but pushing him back. "I set off the plane," she snapped. The other crew member at the back turned to look. The cabin went still. Jordan slowly turned back to her, expression unreadable. "You really want to do this?" he asked. "Do what?" she scoffed. "I'm following protocol." Jordan looked her in the eye and said, calmly, "Good. Then follow protocol when I tell you this." He pulled a small black card from his inside pocket and held it up. "I own this jet." The flight attendant blinked. Then blinked again. Her confident stance wavered as she stared at the sleek black ownership card in Jordan's hand, etched with the logo of the private aviation company and his name, Jordan Hayes, right beneath it. The exact name listed on the manifest as the sole owner and primary passenger. A sudden silence swept through the cabin. The second crew member, a younger steward, quietly stepped closer, his face tense. He leaned toward her and whispered something. She went pale. I'm sorry," she stammered. "There must have been a misunderstanding." "I didn't realize, you didn't ask," Jordan cut her off, his voice cool but measured. "You assumed." She tried to recover. "We just don't usually have unexpected boardings. We have to be careful. Safety measures, you understand." Jordan sat down slowly in the plush leather chair by the window and looked out onto the tarmac. He took a deep breath before glancing back at her. "Do your safety checks. Prep the flight. And bring me some water, please." Her jaw tightened. "Of course, Mr. Hayes." She turned on her heel and disappeared toward the back of the plane. The young steward lingered a moment, then gave Jordan a small, respectful nod before following her. Jordan closed his eyes briefly and exhaled. He wasn't angry. Just tired of this kind of moment. Tired of proving what should be obvious: he belonged here, because he built this life from the ground up. And no one could take that away from him. As the plane taxied down the runway, Jordan settled into his seat, the hum of the engines a soothing backdrop. The tension from earlier still lingered in the cabin air, but Jordan kept his gaze steady outside the window. The flight attendant returned with a glass of water, placing it gently on the small table beside him. "If there's anything else you need, just let me know," she said, her tone softer this time. Jordan nodded. "Thank you." She hesitated a moment longer before turning to the rest of the crew, her demeanor noticeably changed, respectful, attentive, professional. Throughout the flight, Jordan remained quiet but observant. He noticed the subtle glances from the crew and a few passengers, the shift in atmosphere now that his status was known. Still, his mind wandered to the countless hours and sacrifices it took to get here. The late nights, the business risks, the doubts others had about him. None of it was easy. But this plane wasn't just a luxury, it was proof of his perseverance. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows, Jordan smiled softly. This flight wasn't just a journey to Zurich. It was a reminder, no matter the obstacles, he was exactly where he belonged. The plane smoothly touched down on the Zurich runway. Passengers began gathering their belongings, conversations buzzing softly as the flight crew prepared for disembarkation. Jordan stood up, straightened his jacket, and approached the flight attendant once more. "I appreciate how you handled things after the misunderstanding," he said kindly. She looked relieved yet humbled. "Thank you for your patience. I should have confirmed your identity sooner. I apologize for the confusion." Jordan smiled warmly. "We all learn as we go. I'm glad it's behind us." As they exited the jet, Jordan noticed the curious eyes of a few passengers, some nodding in respect, others clearly surprised by the earlier events. He met their gazes without a hint of discomfort. Outside, his driver awaited, ready to take him to his next destination. Before stepping away, Jordan looked back at the sleek plane that had carried him not only through the skies but through yet another challenge. Ownership was more than just a title, it was a responsibility, a testament to who he was and what he had achieved. And no single moment of doubt could shake that. Later that evening, Jordan sat in his hotel suite overlooking the city lights of Zurich. The events on the plane replayed in his mind, not with anger, but with clarity. He thought about how easy it was for people to make quick judgments based on appearances or assumptions. How often he'd faced those moments before, in boardrooms, meetings, even casual encounters. But tonight was different. Tonight, he had the chance to quietly show his truth without shouting it. He reached for his phone and typed a message to his assistant: "Arrange a meeting with the aviation staff for next week. I want to personally thank them and set up new training protocols." Ownership meant more than possession, it meant setting an example, breaking down barriers, and building bridges. Jordan smiled, feeling a quiet pride settle within him. The slap on the plane was just a moment, but what came after was a beginning. A beginning of respect earned, not demanded. The following week, Jordan returned to the private jet's headquarters, a sleek glass building nestled in a quiet business district. Today, he wasn't just the owner arriving for a flight, he was there to meet the entire aviation staff. Inside the conference room, about a dozen crew members and administrators sat waiting. The atmosphere was a mix of curiosity and cautious respect. Jordan stepped to the front, greeting everyone with a warm smile. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I want to talk about something important, not just for me, but for all of us who work in this industry." He paused, scanning the room. "We're in a business built on trust, safety, and respect. But it's also one where assumptions can get in the way. Sometimes, people don't get the benefit of the doubt because of how they look or where they come from." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "That's why I'm here, not just to own this plane, but to make sure everyone who works on it feels valued, respected, and heard. To ensure no one faces the kind of moment I did last week." Jordan pulled out a folder and laid it on the table. "I've worked with experts to create new training programs focused on understanding, communication, and professionalism, tools that will help us build a better environment for everyone. From pilots to flight attendants to ground staff." He looked around the room, meeting eyes. "This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about moving forward, together. Because this jet, these flights, and this company don't belong to one person alone. They belong to all of us who make them possible." A flight attendant from the back raised her hand shyly. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for taking the time to do this. It means a lot." Jordan smiled, genuine and open. "We're all part of this journey. Let's make sure it's one we're proud of." As the meeting wrapped up, several crew members approached Jordan, eager to share ideas and offer thanks. For the first time in a long while, Jordan felt the weight of his role shift from burden to opportunity. Outside, the sun shone bright, a symbol of new beginnings. And Jordan knew this was only the start. Weeks passed since Jordan's meeting at the aviation headquarters, and already, changes were taking root. The new training programs had been implemented across the company, focusing on empathy, clear communication, and professionalism. The staff felt the difference, not just in their daily work, but in how they viewed one another. Jordan stayed involved, visiting the facilities regularly, listening to employees' stories and suggestions. He made it clear his role wasn't just to write checks or sit in a boardroom, but to be an active part of the community he had built. One afternoon, during a routine inspection of the plane, Jordan found himself chatting with Mia, a young flight attendant who had been with the company for less than a year. "I have to admit," she said, "at first, I was skeptical about the changes. But after the training and seeing how you really care, it's inspired me to think differently, not just about work, but about people." Jordan smiled warmly. "That means more than you know, Mia. Change starts with honest conversations." Mia nodded. "I wanted to thank you, too. For standing up not just for yourself, but for all of us. It's made a difference." Jordan felt a swell of pride. Moments like these were the real reward. News of the company's transformation even caught the attention of local media, who highlighted how a successful business leader was using his influence to promote respect and unity in an industry that often overlooked these values. Despite the recognition, Jordan remained humble. "It's not about headlines," he told a reporter during an interview. "It's about creating a culture where everyone feels they belong and can do their best work without fear or judgment." Back at the hangar, the crew gathered around Jordan as the sun set behind the planes, casting long shadows on the tarmac. "We're proud to be part of this team," one pilot said. "Thanks to you, we're more than just co-workers, we're a family." Jordan looked at the faces before him, their smiles genuine, their spirits lifted. He realized then that ownership wasn't just about having a name on a card or a plane. It was about responsibility, toward people, progress, and the future. And with every small step forward, that future looked brighter. Months had passed since the changes began to take shape, and Jordan's life had taken on a new rhythm, one that blended his responsibilities as a business leader with his commitment to fostering a positive environment. He found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here, from the moment he was challenged on that plane to the transformation that had rippled through his company. One crisp morning, Jordan stood on the tarmac beside his jet, watching as a group of new flight attendants went through orientation. He noticed their eagerness and curiosity, and he felt a surge of hope. A young woman approached him nervously. "Mr. Hayes, I just wanted to say thank you," she said quietly. "For making this a place where I feel welcomed and respected. I'm excited to be part of the team." Jordan smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're glad to have you. And remember, this is a place where everyone's voice matters." Later that day, Jordan held a company-wide meeting broadcast to every location. He spoke passionately about the values that now defined the business: respect, inclusion, and continuous growth. "This isn't just a mission statement," he told his team. "It's a promise. A promise that no matter who you are or where you come from, you have a place here. And together, we'll continue building something stronger." As the meeting ended, messages poured in from employees sharing their own stories of growth, challenges overcome, and connections made. Jordan took a moment to breathe it all in, feeling the weight of those words, his words, resonate beyond the walls of the conference room. That evening, as the city lights twinkled below, Jordan looked out from his office window, a quiet smile on his face. He thought about the slap on the plane, that moment that once felt like a setback, but had become a catalyst for change. Ownership, he realized, was far more than a title. It was a journey of courage, humility, and the power to make a difference. And as he prepared for the next flight, the next challenge, the next opportunity, Jordan knew he was ready. Because now, he wasn't just the owner of a plane, he was a leader of a movement. A movement toward respect, understanding, and unity. And that was a flight worth taking. As the seasons changed, Jordan's vision for his company and his role within it only grew clearer and stronger. What had begun as a personal statement of ownership had blossomed into a broader mission, one that inspired not only his staff but the entire industry. One afternoon, Jordan was invited to speak at an international aviation conference. The room was filled with executives, pilots, and professionals from all over the world. As he took the stage, the lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. He began his speech with a simple truth: success is not just about wealth or power. It's about the impact we have on the people around us, the respect we give and receive, the barriers we break, and the legacy we leave behind. Jordan shared his story, the moment on the plane when he was challenged, the lessons learned, and the steps he took to turn that moment into something meaningful. He spoke about leadership, responsibility, and the importance of creating environments where everyone can thrive without judgment or fear. The audience listened intently, nodding in agreement. After his speech, a flood of questions and conversations followed. Many thanked him for his honesty and courage, eager to implement similar changes in their own organizations. Back at his company, Jordan continued to nurture the culture he had worked so hard to build. He introduced mentorship programs, encouraged open dialogue, and prioritized employee wellness initiatives. One evening, during a quiet moment, Jordan received a message from Mia, the flight attendant he had met months earlier. "Thanks for believing in us and showing that true leadership means lifting others up. Proud to be on this journey with you." Jordan smiled, feeling the full circle of his experience. The slap on the plane, the doubt, the confrontation, it had all led to this moment. A moment where he was not only the owner of the jet but a true captain guiding his team toward a brighter future. As he looked out over the runway at dusk, Jordan knew the journey was far from over. But with every step forward, every conversation sparked, and every barrier broken, he was confident of one thing: the sky was no longer the limit, it was just the beginning. Years had passed since that pivotal day on the plane. A moment that could have defined Jordan by a single confrontation instead became the cornerstone of a powerful legacy. His company had grown beyond private jets and luxury flights. It was now a beacon in the aviation industry for inclusivity, respect, and innovation. The training programs he introduced were adopted by other companies worldwide, and his leadership style inspired a new generation of business leaders. Jordan often reflected on the journey, remembering the early days when every step forward felt like a battle uphill. He thought about the flight attendant's reaction, not with bitterness, but as a reminder of why the work mattered. One afternoon, Jordan received an invitation to establish a scholarship fund for young professionals aspiring to enter aviation and business. He accepted eagerly, knowing this was a way to give back and open doors for others, just as he had fought to open his own. At the inaugural ceremony, surrounded by bright-eyed students and industry leaders, Jordan spoke softly but firmly: ownership is not just about having something in your name. It's about owning the responsibility to create change, to uplift those around you and to pave a path for those who come after. As applause filled the room, Jordan's thoughts drifted back to that private jet, that tense moment, and the journey that transformed a simple ownership card into a symbol of hope and progress. He knew challenges would continue to arise, but he was ready. Because his story was no longer just his own. It belonged to everyone who dared to rise, to speak, and to lead with integrity. And that legacy, built from a single moment, would soar far beyond any runway or destination. Jordan stood on the balcony of his penthouse suite, the city lights stretching out before him like a constellation of possibilities. The weight of years behind him felt lighter now, replaced by a quiet confidence rooted in growth and purpose. He thought about the journey, from the moment he stepped onto that plane, faced with doubt and hesitation, to the present, where he was recognized not just as a successful businessman, but as a leader who had helped change minds and hearts. His phone buzzed with a message from Mia, the flight attendant who had become a trusted friend and ally. "We're organizing a team retreat next month, something to celebrate how far we've come. Hope you can make it." Jordan smiled. Moments like these were the true markers of success. The retreat was set in a peaceful mountain lodge, surrounded by nature's calm. Over the course of several days, the team shared stories, challenges, and dreams. They celebrated their victories, learned from setbacks, and strengthened the bonds that had grown through honesty and respect. On the last evening, under a sky blanketed with stars, Jordan addressed the group. We've come a long way, he said softly. But this isn't the finish line. It's a new beginning. Every one of you has a part in shaping the future, not just for this company, but for the industry, and for the world. He paused, looking around at the faces illuminated by firelight. When I was slapped on that plane, it was a shock, a challenge. But it sparked something greater. It showed me the power of standing firm in who you are and leading with kindness. There was a quiet nod from the crowd. This legacy isn't mine alone. It belongs to all of us who believe in respect, dignity, and opportunity. Together, we will keep pushing beyond the horizon. As the night deepened, laughter and conversation flowed freely, a testament to how far they'd come. Jordan knew the future held its uncertainties, but he also knew this: with courage, empathy, and unity, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The plane that had once been the center of a tense moment now symbolized so much more: a vehicle of progress, a bridge between people, and a reminder that sometimes, the toughest challenges can lead to the most extraordinary journeys. And for Jordan Hayes, the flight was just beginning. Years later, Jordan stood once again on the tarmac, watching a new generation of crew prepare the jet for its next journey. The same plane where a single moment had tested him now represented everything he had built, not just a business, but a community. He reflected on the path from that day when he was stopped and challenged, to now, a leader who had turned obstacles into opportunities, and assumptions into understanding. Jordan was no longer just the owner of a plane, he was a symbol of resilience, progress, and hope. As the engines roared to life and the jet began to ascend into the bright blue sky, Jordan smiled, knowing that every flight carried not only passengers but the spirit of change he had helped create. The journey wasn't just about reaching destinations, it was about how you traveled, who you lifted along the way, and the legacy you left behind. For Jordan Hayes, this was the flight worth taking.